Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, author and workplace culture motivational speaker, Frank Kitchen. Hey, what you drinking? Okay, I know that we just keep hitting you with amazing guests, with amazing conversations, and I'm not going to let up. I'm not going to apologize, and I'm not going to let up, because this conversation, I'm going to bring you into the kitchen, and we're going to actually cook up an amazing leadership conversation for you. Because I've got none other than Mr. Frank Kitchen with me. So, Frank, welcome to Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, man. I'm just so excited. How you doing?
And I'm doing good, Galen. We're doing it, virtually here right now. I know I still got to get out to St. Louis so we can do it in person, but I mean, this is the second best thing, so I'm happy to be here today.
All right, man. Well, hey, I'm glad to have you on the show because we have so many mutual friends in common, and we have been in so many rooms together, and we've had so many partial conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for us to actually get into this thing, because you're like a leadership dude for real. So I got a bunch of questions because I want to get smarter in this conversation, right? I'm expecting to increase what I can bring to my audiences after this conversation. So I got a bunch of questions for you. The first question, and some folks say it's the most important question: what you drinking?
Well, I guess you can call it simple today. I'm going H2O. I got the water here. Got to stay hydrated. I'm out in Arizona, so we got to make sure we're keeping hydrated at all times. So I'm going straight water today.
Oh my God. Yeah. In Arizona, they take that hydration thing for real, because you could literally evaporate if you're not hydrated enough. Well, that just means that I'm going to have to really make a significant dip into my whiskey cabinet. I'm going to reach for something that I believe represents our burgeoning relationship, because I have had this whiskey a couple of times, but it's been different derivations of it. I'm going to be tapping into some Hibiki Suntory whiskey. It's a Japanese whiskey, but this is the blended whiskey that is available now. Now, I've had the 12-year. I've had the Hibiki 12-year. And if you guys go back to some of my earlier conversations, some of my earlier episodes, you'll know that I was first introduced to Hibiki 12 when I was out in San Francisco. And then from there, I graduated and I went up to the Hibiki 17-year. Good stuff, really good stuff. And then they stopped putting the age derivations on the Hibiki. Uh-oh. And I have been looking at this blended Suntory for years. I have been in the same room as this blended Suntory on several occasions. I have actually picked up the bottle a couple of times and then put it back on the shelf. But I've never really tapped into it until now. So I got a bottle here, and
there you go.
I'm going to share this with you. It's kind of a nice little bottle, and I'm going to pull the plastic out. I haven't even pulled the plastic out. This is brand spanking new. So wait a second. Let's pulling off the plastic. Got the little crystal cork stopper there. And pour me a little.
Now, while you're pouring this, I don't know if you know this, but you talked about this whiskey when I heard you talk about it in Clubhouse one time. When you first started doing this show in Clubhouse, I popped in, and I remember because you're trying to pronounce it, but I remember a point said Japanese whiskey. So I know you didn't plan it, and you're cracking open the bottle. I heard you talking and describing to people because you were talking about how you're looking forward to it. And that was a couple of years ago. So I feel special today.
This is it, man. So this has got some amber color, which, Frank, you can validate. When you crack this open, the nose is rose and licorice and a hint of rosemary. And it's got a honey-like sweetness, dried orange peel. All this stuff is just making me thirsty. So I'm gonna give this a test. Oh my gosh, yeah, this is gonna be a new staple. I'm actually kind of embarrassed that I have not had this in my collection until now. So I am going to enjoy this hibiki. And I would love, Frank, for you to just introduce my audience to Frank Kitchen. You're not very hard to find, right? They could go online, they can go on YouTube, they could just put in Frank Kitchen in Google, and you're going to find all kinds of information about what you're doing now. But I'd love to know, how did you get to where you are? And bring us into why this conversation that you have all over the world seems to resonate with so many people in so many walks of life.
Well, okay. So Frank Kitchen, got to describe it and got to keep it tight and concise, right? But the best thing I can say is, Frank Kitchen, I am a dreamer. And when I'm on stage, I often tell people, it's like, the more you dream about something, the further away it gets. So when I was younger, I dreamed about wanting to be something special and to stand out. But I grew up in a military family, so we were always traveling. So I kind of stayed quiet and shy. But by the time I got to college, recognized quiet and shy just doesn't really get you to where you want to go. And you talk about the leadership aspect and recognize that if I'm going to be able to start living these dreams that I have, I have to become a leader. So when I got to college, I became part of some clubs and organizations and got mentored by some great leaders who started to show me, what it takes. My mom would see a couple of people. I had a guy named Terrence. She goes, "You need to hang out with him." And so Terrence got me in part of student government, and then he got me onto the campus activities board to bring in like the entertainment on college, and was, doing that piece. And that was great. And then once I graduated, from college there, I'd worked some retail and I took on some leadership roles there doing what I had learned in college. And while I was doing it, I would go back to the school and I was teaching my employees how to get better and how to grow. But then I ended up going back to my original community college to go work in leadership development. And while I was there, I was always challenging my students to live their dreams. And one of my students goes to me one day, he goes, "Hey, Frank, you challenge us to live our dreams. What are you doing to live yours?" So they actually were using my words against me. And they understood that I love traveling. I love working with people. I love helping people grow. And they could see it. And a speaker would come to the college a couple of times. And the speaker had an agency. So they actually went and talked to him going, "We think our advisor would be a great speaker." So this is back in 2006, 2007. And literally I left my college job to go pursue a life to be a professional speaker. But I knew how to speak to a crowd, but I didn't really understand the business aspects of it. So to be honest, I fell on my face a couple of times. And I'm going, okay, maybe this isn't what's meant to be. But then one year I said, you know what? This is the year I'm going to make it happen. I was still working a couple of jobs. And I was like, this is going to be the year. Prayed to God, like I'm going to be a speaker and make this a business by my birthday. My birthday is September. This is January. But I didn't really put the work in. And they say God will only give us what we can handle. And it came up to Father's Day weekend that year, and it was 2015. I can still remember it. It's June 18th. I got called into a meeting with my boss, and my boss pretty much says, "Hey, this isn't working anymore. We're going to have to let you go." I thought I was going in for a promotion, maybe a raise. I was talking about the clients I'm going to go and meet. And here it is, Father's Day weekend, and my wife is pregnant with our second child. We got to go visit her parents that weekend. And I got to walk into my father-in-law's house and I got to go, "Hey, you know what? I lost my job. Your third grandchild's on the way. I want to be a professional speaker." And that's the point when I recognized this was all on me. And I recognized that I'd been around all these different workplaces, organizations, and the great place had great cultures, a great atmosphere, great environment. I thrived. But when I left to start the speaking, I got around some other jobs and it really started to impact my mindset. And I fell flat on my face. And I looked at my wife and I go, "Hey, you know what? We can talk honestly." I was like, "I've been half-assing this thing for 8 years." I was like, I didn't put the full effort. Like, there's nobody else's fault but mine. I was like, "Give me 1 year to really commit to this." Cause it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to find a job anyway. I was like, "Let me make this work." So I'd sign up for a speaking showcase there in New Mexico. My wife looks at me, is like, "Okay, I'll give you that 1 year." And then she said some scary words to me. And the scary words were, "Take my dad with you."
Oh.
So now I got to go to the speaker showcase, and bad enough, I'm going to be speaking in front of high school students, but now I got to take my father-in-law with me. And my wife, her father's side of the family is Mexican. So deal is like, you got to work. It's not to say you want to go speak. So I go to do the speech and he's sitting behind the room watching things. And at the end of it, he goes, hey, Frank, let's go back home and talk about this. We go to talk about it. And he goes, this is what you're born to do. What can I do to help you? And that weekend, ever since, I've been a full-time speaker. So now that was the piece. And I told people, like, that's part, we're going to be talking about leadership. That's that leadership journey, is not trying to be perfect, but being humble and understanding that you do need help. And you got to be able to share that dream with others. And that's what I speak about on stage. Now, as I tell people, I work with organizations who want their people to create this culture that the people hunger for, a workplace culture. It's a culture that believes in growth, personal, professional. It's a culture that's going to help you craft a mindset where you can advance in your career, you can increase your productivity and profits. And that takes place from the leaders. What are the leaders trying to do? Do they truly value their people? And I understood through my journey is when I'm around people in environments, around places, around people like yourself who value growth, I grow. And that's why I'm out there to teach leaders today is, what are we doing to not only grow for ourselves, to live our dreams, but what are we doing to help other people live their dreams too?
There is so much about your story that I just absolutely enjoy and adore. And the one part that really hit me was when you said that you'd been speaking, you had spoken to crowds, but you hadn't done the work. And, and the reason why that hits me is because very often, once you get to a certain level of performance in anything, we kind of know how to pretend like we're doing the work, right? We kind of know how to be in the space and pose like we're doing the work. But when my dad used to say, it was a basketball metaphor because I grew up playing basketball, and he was giving me a lot of advice. And he said, hey, look, you go out there on the court, you look in the eyes of the other player, and in your heart of hearts whether or not you're a better player. And if you're not, then you've got to figure something out. And I relate that to your story because we can pretend like we're doing the work, but we know when we've been putting in the reps and when we've just been pretending.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to say, I haven't been doing the work. What was it like for you to realize, yeah, I'm comfortable in front of people. I can turn a nice phrase every now and again, but I haven't been putting in the reps to do this at a professional level?
Well, I mean, I explain to people, it's one thing when you're trying to live it for yourself, but when you got other people relying on you. So I've got my wife and my kids relying, and that's the piece I looked at. And I've told people honestly, the American way, the American culture now has been to blame or complain, blame somebody else or complain about what's not working for you. And I fell into that trap too. But when I had the 6-hour drive from Phoenix, Arizona to Albuquerque to really kind of just reflect what got me to this point. Why am I unemployed now? Why this is like the 4th time now it's happened. And none of it was because of work performance. Some cases I was the last guy in, the first guy out. A couple companies went out of business. I mean, there's just different pieces. And I'm going, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, it's like I got here because I was being reliant on others. I wasn't taking control of my destiny. I wasn't writing the story. Like you said about, basketball. I played basketball too. And coaches would always go, hey, we got to get you mad. You got to get hungry. You have to want it. Fine, whatever you do in practice, but what are you doing on the court? So the case was, I said, I was talking a good game. I told people, I thought about it. I talked about it, but I wasn't making the emails. I wasn't making the phone calls. And I got around some speaker friends like you. And you start to see it. You said, when you're playing basketball, you think you're one thing. Like some points I go out to the suburbs, clean up on the court. I go down into the city. I'd be lucky to get on the court. And then you start to watch and see what they're doing. They're showing up early. They're playing all the time. And I got around my speaker friends and they're going, did you make a phone call? No, I got an agent. Did you send an email? Well, they're not going to like me. I mean, that's the work you have to do. They don't explain to you, no matter what field you're in or career areas, maybe 15 or 20% of what you're good at is what you get to do. That's the icing on the cake. It's the other 80% of getting to do what you want to go do. And the funny thing was, I had booked speakers and performers for about 15 years before I got into this. So I should have understood, but my head, my ego was too big. I got this. And especially when you got an agent's going to go get work for me. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. I've been working. I put in my 60, 80 hours a week working. This is time for me to sit back and relax. And that's what I realized. And the funny thing was, when I got humbled that week, I had no pride at that point. I called up friends like, hey, I lost my job. What's going on? One friend, he goes, hey, Frank, he goes, and it's kind of funny because he's a deacon for a church. He goes, I drive for Uber and Lyft. I'm like, what? So I started driving a little bit Uber Lyft, make sure I got some money coming in. Talk to another friend. Hey, our school district always brings in a speaker. Will you be that one? The friends weren't judging me. My father-in-law wasn't judging me. What? They started going like, how can we help? I mean, that's the words my wife always says. And this thing any leader should be able to do. The mindset is the question when they hear somebody, see somebody in trouble is like, how can I help? Those 4 words. I'm like, my wife taught those to me. I'm like, and it's beautiful because when you do that, and when I shared it with my friends, they'll go, how can I help? I'm like, I'd like to speak. And literally after I got fired, like within a week, I booked out a week's worth of speaking. I could have done that 6, 7 years ago, but I didn't put in the work.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we've jumped into some significant leadership principles already. We haven't even done the preliminary yet.
Yeah.
So that's what you get when you hang around people who do this for real, Mr. Frank Kitchen, CSP. I want to get into that, but I want to share with you the metaphor for this podcast because I want you to help me articulate how this relates to real world, because this relates very easily in my head. And I think my problem with articulating it is because it's so natural for me. So that's why I need someone who is adept at phrases and words to help me. For me, whiskey, jazz, and leadership, this all fits together. Number one, because I like all 3 literally. I just, again, I got like 80, maybe 85 bottles of whiskey. All of them are open. All of them are different. I like whiskey. Jazz, I like jazz music. I'm getting back into vinyl, but I like jazz music. And leadership, my friends will tell you that very few conversations about basketball, very few conversation about anything doesn't have a connection to some sort of leadership principle. So I like all 3 literally, but also the metaphor. So the metaphor of whiskey is doing what you enjoy with the people you enjoy it with, your crew. Even if there are folks around who don't get it, I'm with my crew, so it really doesn't matter what the other folks say. That's the metaphor of whiskey for me. The metaphor of jazz is getting from where you are to where you need to be on time, in key, even when you don't have sheet music in front of you. That's not an excuse. You can't complain about it. You still have to get there. And then the metaphor of leadership for me is nobody eats unless somebody kills something. Somebody's got to say, all this planning has been great. Marketing is fantastic. I love the strategy, but we're going to do this thing starting tomorrow and we're going to go left unless I get a better idea from someone else. Someone needs to stand up and make that start. So that's how the metaphor fits for me. And like I said, the best I can explain it is just whiskey, jazz, and leadership. How does that metaphor fit with how you see the world and how you do what you do?
So whiskey, jazz, and leadership. I like how you wrapped it together. And when you asked me the question, you probably saw my eyes go into the things like, what does it mean? So when I'm hearing you talk about whiskey and knowing that your love for it is, I think that's a piece of, number one, you have to do what you love, and you got to be unapologetic for it. I mean, it's you. This is your life. So are you doing what you love? Because many of us get into a point, it's not something that we love and we know it, and it starts to eat you on the inside. So number one, do what you love. Number two, the jazz, I think I share with you off camera, was the fact of I used to be a diversity activities director at a college. So the idea was to bring in culture and experiences to the school to expose people to, what life is about. So when I hear jazz, I think it's the case of to make your life a inspirational experience, to look for those. Make it a positive experience, but how can this experience not only inspire you, but inspire others? So let them to go out to do what they love. And then when it comes to leadership, the piece is, teach others how to do the same. Not necessarily the same as you, but to find out what they love, something that is inspiring to them is going to create this positive experience. Because there's a certain experience as far as a leader, when you can teach others how to find that same joy of pursuing what they love. So that's what I see the whole piece about whiskey, jazz, and leadership. Do what you love, make it an inspirational experience, and then teach others how to do the same.
Oh my God, I love it. See, I knew, man, hanging out with speaker friends, man. You guys know how to articulate what's on someone's heart. And this idea of do what you love, that sounds so easy, but there are so many people that are doing what they have to do. They're doing what they don't mind doing. They may do what they like, but very few of us get to do what we love.
Yeah.
Why is that such a big gap to cross?
My belief, as far as the big gap to cross, is we start caring too much about people who don't care about us. I mean, that's the simplest piece. Is
back up. You got to say that one more time,
okay,
and put some more gravity in your voice.
Put some more gravity.
Say that.
So we care. Okay, so we care, and when I say care, we value the opinions of people who don't care or value us. Whoopi Goldberg the other day was on The View, and she goes, when did the world go bad? She goes, hey, when American Idol came out. And people are like, what are you talking about? She goes, that show is all about judging other people. So now we've gotten to this thing where every website, everything out there is like we're judging other people. So now what happens is when moment we step out of our house, we're caring and valuing the judgments of people who don't even know us or care about us or value us. And I share people on stage. I'm like, hey, if I walk towards the door and my daughter and my wife go, are you wearing that? They want the best for me, which means that's they're saying, hey, Dad, you could do better. I'm going to go change because they want the best for me. But if I'm walking down the street wearing what my daughter or wife picked out and someone looks at me, why are you wearing that? Why do I care? Maybe that color set them off because something bad happened in their life. Maybe they just don't like it because they're going to be more dressed down. That's on them. But why do I need to put so much value in that opinion versus the people who love me, care for me, want to mentor me, really value my growth and where I want to go? That's the opinion I should be caring about. But that's where I think we've had this issue in the world is we just care and value way too much about people who don't even know us or care about us.
Oh my gosh, we'll do anything for another like.
Mm-hmm.
Just another like. I love it. And then inspirational experience. You know, I know that is one of the differentiating elements of being a speaker and being a professional speaker is can you create an inspirational experience? Watching you and listening to you should not be the same as listening to a professor. No. Because there should be an inspirational element. Tell me how that fits into leadership.
So obviously we're talking about jazz. And I told you when we're at the college and there was a study, I think it was Ohio State University, but they said people are 20% more productive when they listen to music, even if it's music they don't like. So can you imagine if it's music that you do like? We're more productive, we're more inspired when we're listening to music. So when we say about an inspirational experience, when there's an experience out there where it's something that we love and enjoy, it inspires us to go on to the next one. So when I go down and listen to jazz and they're just up there smiling when they're playing, and you're like, what are they smiling at? And when you see them smiling, then you start to smile and you don't even know why you're smiling. But it's the experience of just enjoying the music. And the funny thing about music is music, I think, is different than movies and books. Like when you hear a song, you can think of every moment or place that you've heard that song. You can remember like, okay, that's when I broke up and I was in tears. And like I was driving back home and that light stopped. And then every song I turned on the radio was all like, a breakup song. I mean, you can remember that piece, or you can remember it's like, okay, that's the song that we walked down for our wedding, or that's the song that we played for my friend's, 30th birth. I mean, there's all those different pieces. And when I said that's the inspiration piece, that inspiration is like the goosebump feeling where it goes through and like it puts the smile on your face. But at the same point, when it says inspire, now you're thinking like, okay, well, how do I get another experience just like that? So my friends who love jazz, once you hear it once, where's the next jazz club? Where's the next jazz singer? Where's the next jazz station? You're inspired to go find more of it. So when I say inspirational experience, when you get this experience where you can transform, this is what leaders got to do. You transform that big vision to reality and you hit it, and you either hit it or exceed it. Then you're like, ooh, what's next? What can I go on and do next? And that's what I see when it comes to the jazz piece is, or just even life and for leaders. How are you creating these experiences that inspire people to want to do more, to take it up to another level? Are you doing that? Or is it getting to points like, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here. I don't enjoy it. And you move on. And that's not what leadership is about. It's not to point people away. It's supposed to point people towards you or point them towards their dreams.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.